Krys, do a little introduction of yourself while they finish setting this up.
Yeah. What's up, everybody? Thank you guys for having me. My name is Krys Benyamein. I am a Southern California real estate agent, born and raised in the Southern California area, and I'm so grateful to be here today. I really am very, very blessed to be here with you guys.
Thanks, Krys. My brother's name is Krys. When he said Taya and Krys, I was like, isn't that cute? Hi, everybody. I'm Taya DiCarlo. I'm an agent at campus in the South Bay of Los Angeles, California native, and Andrew is one of my best friends, and I'm just honored to be here and pay forward wisdom to you guys. And as they set up, I'll give our little intro. Raise your hand if you remember Inside the Actors Studio. James looked so serious. I used to live for that show as a former performer myself. But Krys and I, since we are content creators, I thought, wouldn't it be cool to have Inside the Agent Studio, where this fireside chat is really Krys and I just having a conversation where you guys are eavesdropping on us. And I brought my laptop because I'm a little bit ADHD. And I really wanted this conversation to be organic. Krys is the type of content creator I learned that he loves a teleprompter. And I'm like, yeah, I don't do that. You're going to have to improv with me. And I don't know if you guys know the rules of improv. Raise your hand if you've ever done improv. Ooh, I mean, this is LA. So the number one rule of improv is you cannot deny, right? You play the game yes and. And that's something that I was teaching Krys about when we were brainstorming for this fireside chat. And since I am going to be 43 years old this year, I brought my glasses because I can't see for shit. So just like Mr. James Lincoln.
Oh, we're ready.
Now, where were we? Let's see here. Okay, so before we get started,
Yes.
we want to share with everybody how we want them to feel at the end of this.
Yes.
How do we want them to feel, Krys?
I want you guys to feel inspired. I certainly want you to feel motivated. It's Wednesday, so I want you to go back to your offices Thursday and Friday and feel really amped up to pour into your business. But the last thing that I really want you guys to walk away with, and I hope you feel this at the end of our talk, is some grace for yourselves. I think agents are the most critical human beings, type A, hungry, motivated, and we're so hard on ourselves. And I think we would be better served with a little bit more self-love. So I hope you guys walk away loving yourselves just a little bit more.
And have some ideas, like tangible things you can put into action, because we're going to pull back the curtain and reveal what we do behind the scenes to come up with our ideas, because I have found that the most repetitive question I get is, how do you come up with your ideas for today's success? How do you come up with these content ideas? How do you come up with your stories? How much thought is put into it? Do you get that question too?
Oh, it's a big one.
Yeah, so I want to pay forward our process. I'm going to piggyback on what you tell them, but let's get into it. So let's talk about creative ruts.
Yes.
Writer's block is a real thing. And anybody, I think it goes without saying that everyone in this room knows that content creation works. Am I right? Like, it works. Otherwise, you guys wouldn't be here. And it's great to be inspired by other content creators, but you have to find your own voice.
100%.
Otherwise, it's going to fall flat. Nobody likes canned BS.
Right.
So walk us through what you do when you have a writer's block, when you're lacking the creative juices.
Sure.
Like, how does Krys Benyamein snap out of that and get back into action?
Great question. I think a few things that I do. I'll give you some very easy ones to apply, and then they'll get, more thoughtful. But the first thing is you have to have some sort of process to document the ideas that you come up with. So for me, I'm an iPhone user. I have a notepad with my ideas. Everything is copy pasted to that notepad. If that's not quite you, that seems like too much work. When you have an idea, if you are scrolling with purpose, scrolling with intention, have somebody, a friend, maybe the person that helps you create videos, a thread going with them where you could just automatically DM them any idea that, tickles your fancy. The big thing when you're scrolling, though, is you can't just go online to look for ideas while you are hanging out in bed with your wife at the end of the night, right? Like, you have to scroll with intention, scroll with purpose. So that's like very small, low-hanging fruit. The second thing that I would share with you as far as where do the ideas come from really begins, I think, with how you feel about yourself. And one thing that real estate agents say frequently, at least ones that I talk to, is like, I'm not creative. You've heard that. Like,
Yeah, and that's just bullshit.
It's incredible bullshit.
Human beings are creative.
I think agents are arguably some of the most creative people. When the deal is falling apart and nobody wants to talk to one another, who is it coming up with creative solutions to get things going again? When the appraisal comes in low and you are strategizing who's going to come up in price, who's going to come down to make this happen, that is creativity. So the first thing that I would say is be very mindful with the words that you use, and don't put out to the universe that you're not creative. You are incredibly creative. So say that to yourself. The second thing that I would say is if you are waiting for a time of the day to feel inspired to create stuff, stop fucking waiting. It's not going to happen, right? It is fiction to believe that every morning a creator or an agent like Taya or myself shows up just charged to make videos. It's not always like that, right? I think it's never like that. It really is never like that. So I think, I don't know who came up with this concept, but when you begin to do something, there may be resistance at the beginning, but after a few minutes of doing, you begin to feel sort of in the mood to do more. So I've said this in the past, this concept of having to say fuck you to your mood, right? So if your mood is not feeling like creative or writing or prospecting, you need to push past that resistance and find that after 10, 15, 20 minutes of that action, coming up with ideas, suddenly you're flowing, right? We were talking, or somebody was talking earlier about multitasking, the first panel, and you are not going to come up with your best stuff when you are in the middle of text messaging your buyer about whatever's happening in the deal. You're not going to come up with your best stuff when you're trying to multitask, prospecting, scrolling through Instagram in between people picking up the phone calls that you're making. You need to allocate some time in which you are going to lean in to ideating, and you need to treat that as sacred time, right? So don't save that for the end of your day. Save that for the portion of your day in which you are firing off on all cylinders. So if in your business you have no issues picking up the phone, you are a phenomenal prospector, you don't need that push, well, perhaps you should prospect at the end of the day if that muscle is built so strong, because if it takes all of your bandwidth, just like all of the inside juice, to get together, to come up with ideas, do that shit when you first start in the morning.
With your willpower tank absolutely filled.
Right.
That's a proven thing. At the end of the day, you're gonna eat the ice cream or give in on your diet at nighttime because you actually have a very real tank of willpower.
100%.
So do the things that are, what I'm hearing is the things that you struggle with, try your best to front load your day.
100%, and that is different based on where you are in the business, right? If you suck on the phones, people talking on the phone sucks the life force out of you, continue to prospect in the morning, right? But look at yourself and where you are weakest, and that is probably where you should begin. And then the last thing that I would share as far as where the ideas come from is I believe that creativity comes from the action, right? Like, we are not up here as influencers. We are up here as real estate agents who create content. And I think that agents forget sometimes that it is the real estate portion of what we do that we want to share online. And what I mean by that is the ideas are in the buyer consultation that you are sitting at. The ideas are in the home inspection when the home inspector says, "What's a GFCI?" and the buyer just looks at him like, "What? I don't know what that is," right? The ideas come from the action, and I encourage you and I would ask you to think about what's happening in your business, because the more people you talk to, the more houses you preview, the more listing appointments you go on, the more losses you face. That's where creativity lives. It's not in isolation in your room.
So I got something from that. So what I would suggest, what I'm hearing Krys say, is that having that real life experience all of us have when we go in on a listing appointment, when we're working, perhaps a good hack around this to apply this to content creation if you're looking for new ideas and how to apply it, keep a journal. Keep a journal where you write down at the end of the day, what were the repetitive questions that you've been asked a million times? Guess what? That's a great video. Yep. Make a video about that question that you've been asked a zillion times at the inspection. Whatever you're finding yourself scaling to better serve the client, what a great video. And I have found that the more videos that I make, I have clients reaching out to me saying, you should make a video about this.
100%.
And I'm like, oh, we'll see. So when you really start creating that habit, then you create that trust and people are like relying on you to do it, which reminds me of like, how do you stay consistent? Because I will tell you that I struggle with this. Like last year, having a pivot year where, you know, I had to make some decisions with my finances and I wasn't able to be as consistent with my content banking. My consistent videos were how I was getting all the referrals that were still coming when I was having a quote unquote off year, and we're going to talk about that, about the road to success and what that looks like. But tell us about content banking, because what's very interesting to me is that even though we've talked about this at so many conferences, you hear it online all the time, wow, it just seems like you're making videos all the time.
Right.
But we're not. I know for me, I content bank once a month. I collect my thoughts on my notes, because for me, I can't really be intentional with it. Like my creative juices come, like if I'm like taking a shower or I'm driving, I'll do an auto text or I'll text myself.
I love that.
So I just, whenever the idea comes, I jot it down. So then when it's time to content create, I have everything at my fingertips.
I love that.
But tell us what your content banking looks like.
Yeah. So I think content batching is huge, and the more that we lean into it, the more we realize this is how you do everything consistently. And you know, this will be my 7th year in the business, and it looks very different than it did my first year in the business. And that's because I actually have more business to do. And if anybody has been following me from the beginning, you'll see that in the last, I'm making a pivot because I want the content to perform. But in 2024, I was very grateful for what was happening in the business and all.
Don't be modest. This is not the place to be modest. How many deals did you do last year?
I did 65 transactions.
And what was the volume?
47 million.
Can we get a clap for that? Holy shit.
The lesson that I learned about being consistent is that I had built the muscle strong enough to know that I was willing to show up online every day. And what was showing up online every day was listing related content, right? So I knew I wanted to be consistent. So then I was consistently marketing my listings, which was beautiful. But if we are not creating content that allows us to have conversations, then we're fucking up. And that's why I think it's funny about what people suggest or tell us to post, because in my opinion, it doesn't matter if it's feet pictures, food pictures, gym pictures.
Can you make money off that?
Yeah.
Is that what you're doing?
I think somebody is.
Okay, never mind. Keep going.
My point is, if they are not engaging, and by they, I mean the community, by they, I mean your clients, by they, I mean other agents, whatever it is, whoever it is that you want to talk to, if they are not communicating with you, you need to reevaluate the content and the strategy that you're putting out there. So the lesson, or the batching lesson that I was trying to make is, when I stopped batching content so much, I leaned in on my listings because I was going to show up every single day, because that was the choice that I made with myself personally, right? That was my personal choice. But now that I'm learning that I want to have more conversations, that just creating listing related content doesn't allow me to have the conversations that I want, I'm back to where I started 6 years ago, batching the content the way that Taya describes, is that I will have a time on the calendar in which I am designated to just film the videos. And Joaquin is a blessing. He's my creative director. He's here somewhere. And when Joaquin gives me an idea, the day that we're shooting content, most of the time, the answer is no. I'm not doing that right now. And the reason I'm not doing it right now is because I'm in shooting mode. I am in creating mode. I'm not in idea mode. You guys following what I'm saying? Before shooting mode is idea mode for me. That's when I sit down with a piece of paper. That's when I have the news articles that I tab. That's when I have videos that inspired me tab open so I can figure out what the concept or what I'm going to lean into it. So batching for me is 3 pieces. First piece is ideation. Where are all the ideas coming from? What am I sourcing? What are the titles going to be? What are the scripts going to be? I don't use a teleprompter on everything, but I will use one if I have one and it's there for me to use if it works, right? I dial all that in. The next time we're together, we're shooting the content. There's no new stuff happening there. I don't want to sound so, rigid, but it's a different piece of the brain for me. So I'm
systemized.
Yeah.
That's how you're able to actually scale this.
Exactly. And then the last piece, do as I say, don't do as I do, but the last piece is calendaring and writing all the captions, right? That's a job of itself.
Do you use AI for that? Because I do utilize ChatGPT. Like, I will just, God, I hope nobody can ever tap into what I put into ChatGPT.
Yes.
I offload on Chatty.
I
That's
think
what I call her.
that if you are not leveraging things like ChatGPT, you are missing the opportunity to make the content better. So if I'm not going to use ChatGPT to help me start the nut of whatever the caption's going to be, I am for sure going to take whatever I wrote, put it back in ChatGPT, and ask it to adjust or alter it based on the intention.
Yes.
And that is strategic with every email I send, every blog that's published, every title, everything is ran back through. Give me 5 versions of this.
Or you could even say, make this for LinkedIn, make this for Instagram, make the caption funnier for TikTok, whatever it is. You can put your thoughts and your authentic juices into whatever caption
100%.
or message you want to say, and then tell AI to tell it in whatever platform that you're going to be utilizing, because LinkedIn is a great opportunity to speak to other business professionals. So there's so many opportunities here that I'm hearing that you can utilize AI and not just set it and forget it, and utilize a creative director, but not just hand over the creative reins. You still have to show up, you still have to be involved, is what I'm hearing.
100%. And you still have to check what this stuff is spitting out to you, right? Like, it's pretty obvious, in my opinion, when people are publishing shit that ChatGPT served them. You can tell, right? So audit it, review it again, and use it, leverage it. I have a property in escrow right now, and the sellers didn't have the budget to stage the house. And we used AI to digitally stage the house, right? And it was beautiful. And I think those are one of those things that you lean into the technology, don't run away from it. It's not taking over. However, the agents who are not using it will fall behind the agents that are using it.
It's just a time saver, I feel like. I love using it for just cutting down, because I tend to overtalk, overwrite, overshare. It's a blessing and a curse. But AI can help me cut it down and say, hey, help me make this less repetitive. Here's my entire thought. Can you chop this down into a 5-second hook for an Instagram reel, right? These are the things that you can ask ChatGPT to do for you, and I feel like you'll win every time. Krys and I can talk all day, but I want to get into the woo-woo, because, look, from a tactical perspective, we can all sit here until we're blue in the face and talk about how social media can actually equate to money in your bank account and better quality clients. Like, that's my biggest thing that social media has brought me, is agents that I love and trust, who love and trust me and send me their amazing clients. Like, I've hit a point in my business where I really love only doing business with people I really like and respect, right? And in the beginning of your career, you don't have that luxury. But let's talk about the road to success. Backstage, we were having some really deep thoughts on this. And for those of you who don't know Krys personally, his videos can oftentimes be goofy and funny, and very much like Matt Leonetti was saying in his video, known as the funny guy. But Krys is extremely intelligent. He worked as an attorney, right? Before becoming a realtor. And when I first talked with him, before we put together our talk here, I was like, well, Krys, I'm so proud of you and your numbers. And he immediately went to what most of us do, right? Like, oh, well, it wasn't that big of a deal because I'm on a team and, my mom's, a goat. She's the greatest of all time at what she does, and I've learned from her. And I'm like, whoa. Don't cut yourself, don't cut yourself off here. It's very important to recognize that the road to success is not linear.
Right.
And that those who do not use the power of leverage fail.
100%. Yeah, I think it's an illusion in which we think even people that are bootstrapping it are doing it entirely by themselves. I certainly am that's what brought me into this industry. I practiced law for about 6 years before I got into real estate. I've passed multiple bar exams. It wasn't because I didn't make it as a lawyer. I joined this business because I had the privilege of having a mom in the industry who was one of the best, who is one of the best. And it's not easy to find good mentors. So I've been trying to think about the struggles that I face a little differently as a result of having read a book recently called Who Not How. Have you guys heard of this? It's a really good book I encourage you guys to check out. And oftentimes when we face an obstacle in our lives, we ask ourselves, how do I solve this problem? How do I solve this problem? It's a very American idea, and there's a lot of truth to it, and I don't want to say it's all negative, but we want to figure out how to do things by ourselves. And what the book shares, in which I think all of us can take something and apply it to our lives, is instead of saying, how do I solve this problem, we ask ourselves, who can I enlist to help me solve this problem, right? So Jen Dillard was up here earlier talking about her company. Who can help me do my marketing, right? Who can help me write the blog? Who can I talk to about this idea that I've been working towards? So I think all of us not only would have a better quality of life, but the client would get better service if we asked ourselves, who can we enlist to support instead of me trying to do it all by yourself? Because there's no doubt that you can do it all by yourself. No doubt. But are you the best bookkeeper? Are you the best copywriter? Are you the best person on the console, right?
And what's the cost of doing it on your own?
Right, exactly. I think everyone gets a inferior experience, right? So depending on what generation you are from, people have different communication styles, right? Boomers speak differently than Gen Xers. Millennials want things differently than Gen Zers. Everybody wants something different. So where I'm going with it is, who do you have in your life that you can enlist when you are communicating with somebody that might be from a different generation that would help you get where you're going? So my mom is my best friend, one of my best friends. My mom is a titan in this game. But mom doesn't come with me on every listing appointment. However, if I am meeting with somebody that's like 60 or over, or 50, I don't want to age it, but I will leverage her when I know the person on the other side of the table is going to connect differently than with a 35-year-old guy covered in tattoos.
Well, and let's not get it twisted. Your mom is leveraging you.
100%.
Okay? Because there's something really beautiful about understanding and recognizing what your worth is, right? Self-confidence is different than self-worth. Self-confidence is like, oh, I feel good today, I look good today. Self-worth is knowing how to exercise a boundary and just say, you know what, I know what my value is. And this is the fee that I charge, bottom line. And I'm not wavering from it. And if you don't want to pay it, I'm going to go
100%.
offer my business to someone else. So when it comes to the sense of leverage and collaboration and who not, what was it?
How.
Who not how. Like everyone in this room did not do it alone. Challenge me on your shit. Like, seriously. I started in this business in 2008 as the head assistant to Cindy Andrew, who I'm still very close with. She's one of the top luxury brokers in the country. Shout out to Cindy. I worked for her for over 2.5 years. After that, I worked with a husband and wife team where I learned the ropes of the business, but they leveraged me because I helped bring them into the modern times, helping them with their website and social media back in 2013, 2012, right? Because back then, nobody was getting clients off of Zillow and all these other things. Now it's a totally different story. My point is that just as much as you leverage your mom's grit and tenacity and great reputation in the business, she absolutely leveraged you too.
Absolutely.
Which leads me to my favorite part of our conversation. the road to success.
Oh, right.
Because when we talk about something not being linear, if you haven't had quality time with a therapist, you're like, goes right over your head. But when we say that life is not linear, success is not linear, healing from something traumatic is not linear, what we mean is, in life, I don't know where we learned this, but we think climbing the corporate ladder.
Right.
Right? We think that, oh, life moves along like this flow chart. And it's just, we're gonna go like this. It doesn't fucking work like that. Okay? If you've ever been through some shit, you learn that sometimes you have to take a couple steps backwards before you can actually go forwards. Sometimes you have to sit still. And what I've learned, and I can't wait for you to share your analogy with this, I learned that in my tough seasons, in the moments where I've learned how to pivot, in the moments of darkness, there are always little glimmers of hope. And one of my favorite analogies is aligning with nature. When you see a beautiful tree, and I want you to apply this to your life, okay? Imagine that every leaf on the tree represents something beautiful in your life. Maybe it was becoming a parent, maybe it's having some success in your business, and maybe it's future dreams, right? If you want to have a family, you want to get married, or you want to travel, and you have all these plans, and those are all beautiful leaves in the tree. And sometimes those dreams don't happen. And sometimes relationships fail, or sometimes just shit happens. And the leaves during the autumn fall off the tree. And it's very sad if those were dreams that you were really holding on to. But the key here is that those leaves do not fall in vain. They decompose into the soil. They enrich the soil, which strengthens the root of the tree. And when you see that tree in its winter season, it very much looks dead. But underneath the ground, there's a whole network going on. That tree is very much alive. And you cannot fast forward through winter. Winter is very important. Because then the spring comes and the growth happens again. Which leads me to, when we say it's not linear, sometimes you have to sit in a winter season.
Right.
What did you learn from your experience of climbing? You climbed Mount Everest, what, a couple years ago?
Yep.
But there was training leading up to that.
Yeah.
And how have you found that those lessons from climbing can be applied to just life in general and the map of success of your career so far?
Yeah, great question. I think that there is no real failure, and that's so cheesy and very Oprah, but the fail is when you throw in the towel, right? Because if you think you have failed, why not just push the finish line a little further so that you have more opportunity to get where you're going? And I'll give the example that Taya is referring to. Before I climbed Mount Everest, I've been climbing a lot of big mountains for many years, but leading up to Mount Everest, I went to climb in the Bolivian Andes, a mountain called Illimani. It's it's the second biggest mountain in the Bolivian Andes, almost 7,000 meters, almost 21,000 feet. And I spent about 4 weeks in Bolivia before climbing this mountain, climbing a lot of other peaks, and it was a really successful trip, a lot of good climbing, a lot of summits. Felt very good getting my feet wet before I decided to go try to climb Mount Everest. And on Illimani, we got terribly lost. Super lost in some heavy fog, hunkered down in the snow for a few hours, waiting for things to pass. I look back, I reflect back, and I'm so grateful we didn't just walk off the side of this cliff, but ultimately, we failed. Big F fail. And I walked back to my tent, and I remember sitting on a rock in front of the vestibule of my tent with my hands in my face, crying, just really defeated, right? I had worked really hard up to this moment, and one of the Western guides comes up to me and says, "Krys, what you will learn from climbing enough is it's the mountains we don't summit that make you a real mountaineer." And I didn't understand it, right? I just felt defeated at that moment. And it took me not as long as it had in the past to recover from some losses, because I'm working on that emotional intelligence. I'm working on that resilience. And after coming home and reflecting back, and truly it didn't click until I summited Everest, was that my failure on Illimani was not a failure. It was a rite of passage. It was a struggle for me to succeed on the mountain that I was working towards, Mount Everest, right? And if that is not linear, or if that is not clear enough, big mountains, 8,000-meter peaks, to anything 26,000 feet and taller, takes months typically to climb, not because it is climbed linearly. It is climbed up and down for your body to climatize to what is going on. You climb up to 20,000 feet and you return back to 17,000 to build the red blood cells. You climb up to 21,000 feet and you come back to 17. You climb to 24,000 feet and you come back to 17. You climb to 26 and you come back to 22. And you do 8 weeks of this fucking rat game up to the summit, right? And what I ask you, or what I encourage you to think about, is what is happening in your life that is allowing you to build these red blood cells, because you are working towards a new climate, a new altitude that your body needs to develop in that loss, or in what you think is the downfall. There's no losing. There's just moving towards the goal that you want. And when you stop moving is when you lose.
I'm like moved to tears. I was so proud because sorry, I'm a crier. That analogy is so powerful, because so many of us have that mountain that we didn't summit.
Right.
And for whatever that is for you, to actually get some clarity around that, get some closure around that it's not in vain. Whatever failure you think you've experienced is for a reason. It's your winter. And you're very much alive. And there's very much life happening, and growth happening, and it is propelling you forward. And sometimes you have to descend in order to ascend. And whatever that means for you, I hope today that you really get introspective about that and recognize what your value is, so you can really go forth on your ascent, is that the word? Your ascent into the future. So my question for you, Krys, before we wrap things up, because this feels like an organic place to kind of stop. And I've still enjoyed this. Have you guys enjoyed this?
Thank you.
I want to ask you, after this experience being on stage, what do you take with you today?
I take with me that everything is an opportunity, and when you approach relationships from a place in which you want to just cultivate the relationship and care about them, doors will open and opportunities will be provided. And all of these funny internet relationships that I've developed over the years, watching The Snapping Realtor before he was Andrew Jevin, watching Taya's watching Taya's 2 cents before I really knew Taya, those relationships are real, right? And you are being interviewed for opportunities that you don't know of all the time. And I am just so grateful to have had this opportunity to be with you guys, and I don't take it lightly.
And what do you want them to take with them? By the way, this is what Dr. Dana asked me at the end of our session. What do you think? Well, Dr. D, there's always a little gem of wisdom that we take with us after every session, and this feels like you guys got to sit down for a little deep dive woo-woo session with us.
I'd like you guys to take away that it's supposed to be fucking hard. That balance is bullshit, and that you should look for harmony in your life, and that if you want to be the best real estate agent, you're going to compromise something else in your life. You want to be the best content creator, you're going to compromise something else in your life. and that you need to give yourself grace, but as soon as you think it's easy, there's a lot of shit that you're probably not doing. So embrace the suck, let it be hard. It's okay that it's hard. If it's hard for you, it's super fucking hard for the person next to you.
Thanks, you guys.
God bless you guys.
I love you, man.